You thought that Monsters of Geek had reached its own Endgame with Avengers, but we've not. See what I did there, Jared? Wordplay, Endgame, all
Yeah,
that good stuff.
that's nice.
I did promise on the last podcast. Jared did go see it a couple days after we recorded. So this is obviously this is Aaron, the host of the show, and with me today we've got Jared Collins, and this is going to be SPOILERcast 2.2.5 as we move on. Not truly a SPOILERcast 3, but a continuation of the discussion we had with Andrew and Yeti and Daniel last week. So I wanted to bring Jared on. Me and him were texting back and forth, and he's finally went. So I haven't really texted too much about it because I really want to kind of get his reaction here, so we can kind of talk and have a good discussion here. But first of all, Jared, how have you been doing, man? We haven't got to talk very much. We've all been pretty busy, and
Yeah.
you've been redoing your floors, and I've been moving into a new house, and we've just haven't got a chance to really talk much. How you been doing, man?
Pretty good. A lot of work and just tired.
The
I've
floors
had,
look great, by the way. So if
oh,
anybody needs to hire
thanks.
Jared to lay floors,
No,
I'll just
I'm,
contact me. Just private message me. I'll give you his number.
I'm out of the flooring business. Uh, I,
Go
I,
down, go down on top.
yep, I have been trying to get through some more movies. I did. Let's see. The weekend before May the 4th, I watched Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back, and then or on Saturday, I watched The Force Awakens because I was so excited about the new trailer. So I figured I'd go back and do that. And then I checked another movie off my AFI list. So I'm down to 14 movies to finish the.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then they'll come out with a new list tomorrow.
Uh, I may be done if I can get through these last 14 because some of them are really uncommon. I'm going to have to buy or rent if I want to get through them. Some like 1930s, 1920s, I think one of them is. So it, it's going to.
Ooh, 1920s. How you think it
It's.
may be on? You think it may be on YouTube? Have you checked on YouTube?
I haven't checked on YouTube. I'm still. I am listening to the Unspooled podcast where they're
Mm-hmm.
going through the top 100, and so far, what I've made it through, there's only two of them that I haven't watched, which was Swing Time and Philadelphia Story. So I think that's maybe the last musical on the list,
Mm-hmm.
Swing Time or the Jazz Singer. I can't remember what it is, but whatever it was, they were not impressed.
Oh,
so so
ouch.
so I'm not looking forward to that.
The great thing about movies is one person's unimpressed.
Yeah,
Nature would be maybe you like it
yeah,
a little bit a
yeah.
lot.
The one thing like they did Shawshank Redemption, and a lot of the people aren't a big fan of Shawshank Redemption, but
Really?
I'm like
Does those
they don't.
people not have a heart or a soul
I
or
I
anything?
don't know. It's a great story. I can watch it anytime, wherever it is in the movie. If I see it, I'm going to sit down and watch it. Um, that's part of it. What great makes it a great movie. But I don't know. There's a lot of people out there that hate on it, so it doesn't make sense to me.
Since we're talking about movies right quick, I have not watched Homecoming yet. Okay, this is
Oh
next
my
on the
gosh,
list.
I got that for you
I know,
months
I know.
ago.
It's on the list. It's on the list. I did watch Black Panther finally, and
Okay.
really, really liked it. I didn't talk
What?
about it on Spoilercast, but I thought it was really good.
Yeah, it
I
was.
think it's such a different superhero movie. It does touch on a lot of the cultural stuff that's going on now, which I thought was really nice. Um, I just thought it was really well done, man.
Yeah, I really liked it. Did you watch Ant-Man and Wasp?
I haven't watched Ant-Man and Wasp yet. That was on the list too, but
I,
I
I,
I read what happened with that one because somebody had said it was going to probably play in the in game pretty
yeah.
heavy, so I went and read like a synopsis of it just to kind of keep up. But
It was really good. It wasn't as good as the first one, but it was good.
I
I
really liked the first one. I thought the first one was I didn't know what I was getting into when I saw when we first watched it, and I thought, man, this is really that's when at that point I guess Marvel just couldn't go wrong at that point. Like it
Yep.
was just like it's going to be good, whether or
One
not it's Ant Man or like Squirrel Girl. Like it's just going to
one
be good.
one home run after another.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. And then I did watch Into the Spider-Verse. I did actually pick that one up on Blu-ray, and because somebody said,
everybody says it's good.
Really good. I think it kind of gives me everything I want in a Spider-Man movie that I kind of have apprehension about Homecoming. Obviously we'll watch Homecoming because you got me the Blu-ray, so I am going to watch it. But
you've watched Captain America's Captain America Civil War. All right, and you've now watched Avengers: Infinity War and Endgame. How do you not know if you like him as Spider-Man or not?
Well,
You've seen enough of it.
Well, it's not that I don't think Tom Holland's a good Spider-Man, because I think he is a good Spider-Man. Like, that's not – I don't think the casting's a problem. I think the problem is I'm not a big fan of him being Tony Stark's sidekick.
Right.
And I think that's where the new one – and we'll talk – have you seen the new trailer yet?
Not the newest one.
Okay.
No.
Well, when you watch the new one, I'm more intrigued on that one because obviously there's no more Tony, and you could tell that he's kind of more.
Well, even in Homecoming, though, it's not like he's Tony Stark's sidekick.
Okay.
It's like Tony is there in bits and pieces just to, kind of to keep him interested. Be like, oh, well, you have these powers. And try to guide him in the way he needs to be. But he's not. He just shows up randomly. It's not, the whole movie. He's not.
Okay. I mean, I like Tom Holland, and if you haven't seen his lip sync battle, I don't know if you've seen this or not.
I've not seen that.
You might need to take a look at it. He goes pretty hardcore on one that's almost too over the top to a certain extent. It's like he's done this in his bedroom before, type of thing, and way too many times. But it's really good. I definitely recommend it. But I want to watch it, and I like Tom Holland. I like the characterization of Spider-Man. I'm just not a big fan, I guess, of Tony Stark being this mentor, and because Infinity War, it's a little bit more. I don't know. I think Spider-Man is like the heart of the Marvel universe. So the older, and I've said this 1,000 times, and I'm sure people, it's just like, all right, man, we get it. You like an older Peter Parker, but I just like Peter being older, and I guess I don't know, like. It's fine. We got Spider-Man in the Marvel Universe, which is great. And so, but I just like it. That's what I grew up on was older Peter Parker. Yeah. So I just prefer that.
I kind of like it because you get to see him make all these mistakes, because all these other heroes are more polished. And he's like the tag along that nobody wants. Right. He's still developing, and they're trying to point him in the right direction. And that's kind of what Tony's doing. A scientist, Tom or Spider-Man wants to run out and do all these things, but he's like, hey, you need to, stick in this little section for right now, focus on this, and then you can get bigger. But
I also think I said it, I don't know if you've listened to the our discussion before, but I said in that episode that I feel like that Scott Lang is an older Peter Parker. And the more I see him on screen and interact with it, he reminds me of like an older Peter Parker, especially like when he converses with like the Avengers, who's the A group, and he doesn't feel like he's an A guy, and he's using the same sense of humor as a Peter Parker would. Yeah. So I think I've kind of measured it, be like, okay, well, this is a young Peter Parker, and I guess I got an older Peter Parker in Scott Lang, because I do really like Paul Rudd in that role. He's awesome.
He's kind of a underestimated character, I guess, in the Marvel universe. When it's not actually Hank Pym in there, so you're getting Scott Lang, so he's kind of this character that doesn't really fit in, but
like all the jokes he says in Endgame, which I'm sure we'll discuss, but I could envision that being Peter Parker on the couch. Like I could envision Paul Rudd playing an older Peter Parker, which both is awesome because I kind of get that with him, but also, man, I wish Paul Rudd was an older Peter Parker. So I don't know. So speaking of Endgame, we'll have a good discussion here. Jared, first of all, what did you think walking out of this, if you can think back to when you saw it and the awesomeness that this movie is? When you walked out of the exit, what was your first thoughts on Endgame?
That I thought it was the proper send-off to end the phase. It just everything kind of fit, and you could see where they're transitioning some new characters to come in, and hopefully the deal with Fox, you can see where some of those characters can take place, and expanded universe. I mean, because the whole Loki thing, I was reading about it today, because he's got his own Disney Plus show. So how's that going to work? And that fits into that too. So, we've always wanted, they should tie in Daredevil and Luke Cage and all that, which would have been spectacular. But now with Disney Plus, they can it's like they are going to incorporate some of those things. So you're getting a whole mashup of tons of things, and you can have offshoot universes now too. Yeah. But yeah, I thought it was the proper send off, and I didn't cry, but
I'm glad somebody did.
It pulled at your heartstrings, because anytime you've got little kids involved, then I always go for that, and that's what they were trying to break me right there. and I knew it was going to happen the whole movie. I'm like, oh, he's gonna, they set it up the whole movie, and I knew that's what was going to come down to.
They've kind of set it up. I mean, if you ever think about the Infinity War, or even when I didn't watch Iron Man 3, but I read a synopsis of that one too, because I just never got a chance to watch it. So quit smiling, Jared, okay? Everybody said I could skip that one. I'm not a big Iron Man guy. Like, I think Iron Man looks cool on screen. I think this character of Tony Stark, sometimes he has his moments like, oh, he's a really cool dude, but the rest of the moment he's kind of a rear end. And he's kind of a know-it-all. And we kind of see that kind of rear its head up a little bit in that when Captain Marvel brings him back from space, and he's in that ship, and him and Cap is, we talked about it on the other podcast, like, it's the first time they spoke since like before Civil War. And so they haven't really had that conversation, and Tony kind of blames him for not being there. Like, he blames him for everything that's happened with Thanos, and basically reverts back to that kind of selfish Tony Stark. But by the end, obviously this is SPOILERcast, so we can discuss whatever we want. By the end, he becomes Captain America. No, I'm joking. He does die. He does, he does pass away when he uses the stones to click away Thanos and his army. We'll just get that out of the way. So sorry if you didn't, no warning. But we kind of I want to kind of talk to you about this, because I thought that at the very end, and maybe throughout this movie, we're finally getting the best of Tony Stark. Like, he's not, he's still snarky and funny. Obviously, that part of his personality never went away. But he is kind of being an unselfish Tony Stark. Like, you could argue through the rest of the movies, and I haven't seen 3, so maybe I'm a little bit off base here, but, he is kind of, I'm the biggest brains in the room. I know everything. I want to do what I want to do because I'm always right type of thing. And I thought during this movie, especially by the end, and a lot of that has to be where, and I don't want to repeat what I said on the podcast, but I think to ask you the next question, I think I have to, is that, because he became a father and a husband, and he had something that he felt like he could sacrifice himself for, or that he had pride in, other than the fact he had big brains. And by Tom, that's what kind of made him. And I wonder if, thinking, they say he didn't do that character-wise, obviously, and obviously they wrote that in the movie. Say character-wise, like, he didn't marry Pepper, he didn't have a kid. We would have had the Tony Stark to save the world from Thanos? Like, do we get that best Tony Stark who has finally kind of put himself aside and is going to make this ultimate sacrifice, when earlier in the movie, and this is him maturing, was like, look, I got my second chance, and he's holding his daughter, which I think is a big maturity moment for his character, because he's always been the hero. He always wants to be the spotlight. And he's like, you know what? I'm out of this time, guys. Do you think his story arc, as you watch from Iron Man 1, when he stands up and says, hey, I'm Iron Man to the whole public, and as he kind of moves on, I've seen Iron Man 2, again, I haven't seen 3, but as you kind of move through Infinity War, still kind of the I'm right, all this stuff, arrogant Tony Stark, but by the time his life ends in Endgame, he's a completely kind of different character. What'd you think about his story arc from the beginning, who started the whole thing, to where he ended up?
Yeah, it's pretty much exactly like you said. I don't think without his family he ends up there. I think if it's not him, then it's Captain America there at the end. Because I kind of could, before Endgame, I'm like, one of them's going down. Yeah. Captain America or Iron Man is going to die. And then as soon as they set up with his family, I'm like, I know I know it's Tony now. It's got to be him, just because they're setting this up. But he has something. Basically, when you have that family and you have that kid, you have something more to live for. Because if he doesn't do it, then he knows Thanos is won and all hope is lost.
Yeah.
So,
especially the way that Thanos is like now, this is personal. I'm gonna make everybody suffer, type of thing.
Oh yeah. Well, once it got to that point, and Thanos is like, this was, basically that I succeeded and you're trying to undo what I did. And so now he's mad about it. so then he's going to try to take it out on everyone. And, Tony stepped up and knew, that's what he had to do. But if he hadn't had that family, I don't think he has that moment. If it would have been and he would have done it, without the family, then he would have wanted some sort of big recognition and big send off for it. Yep. It would have been that I'm going to be remembered forever. But, that was like, this is for my family. This is so everybody else has that chance that I got.
Yeah, I'll just be 100% honest. I cried. Obviously, that's the Hawkeye thing got me because I really was. I told Sean before we went, I said, because, everybody kind of makes fun of Hawkeye's hair, okay? Obviously, his hair do change. He's got this faux hawk thing going on here. But I told him, I said, you probably do understand, like, his family's been dusted, right? Like, like you do understand that he probably has nothing. And even though, does it lend him to a better haircut? I don't know. But he's definitely not going to be the Clint that we knew before. And right from the get-go, and I think this is, we was talking about on the other podcast, and kind of get your feedback on this, is it started really quickly. Like, it came right out, because I went with Andrew on Friday night, which we had a great theater, and with Joe on Saturday. And all of our reactions was, it went from like the last, preview to right in. There was no introduction, no Marvel 10 years. It was boom. And it was almost like, obviously, I think I don't know if they shot some of this together. I don't know if they did, but it was almost like they wanted you to really remember where they had left off. Like, this is right when the snap occurred. What did you think about how it started? As a movie person, and we both cinematically, like, we like watching movies for that reason, like how they set it up, the cuts, stuff like that, the scene, where you break the scene at. How'd you think about how they started from like a movie standpoint, in terms of really quick starting and be like, okay, guys, remember this a year ago? We're going to pick up right where we left off.
Yeah, I do like that. It's almost like the one continuous movie. Just like if you're watching Lord of the Rings. I mean, if you watch them back to back to back, they could be seamless, and that's kind of how Endgame is in Infinity War, that you could play one right into the other without, if you take out all the credits, it's going to go seamlessly. And so I did like that. And I think the only indication they gave, I think the Lucasfilm Studios or Skywalker Ranch, was it a thing? Or no, that might have just been for the Star Wars trailer.
I think it was just for the Star Wars, because it went right into, because we all looked at it, it was like, oh, it's starting, and everybody kind of shut up real quick.
Yeah, and Robin's sister had actually started talking about how it started, and we had to make her shut up at the kid's birthday party because, like, we haven't seen it yet, so you have to be quiet. And so I knew that as soon as I saw them shooting, I was like, okay, now it's starting. So, and I like Hawkeye in this one. He kind of is like the Hawkeye that we had in, oh my gosh, Ultimates.
Ultimates, yeah.
Yeah, he's a more grittier version of himself. And I could see him doing whatever it takes to get the job done. I mean, that he was just there to kill everyone. And he kind of had to be reeled in to think a little more calmly. And I think Black Widow, that's the only person that could really do it.
Well, they've always kind of been, we'll talk about this a little bit before I move on. I did cry during the Tony Stark part. I just think that him being a dad, and I asked, Daniel the same thing, and I asked you too, and you said you almost teared up. But as a dad, to see that, it's just, it got me. I was like, I'm going to have to get out of this theater. I'm just going to have to leave, okay? So I was pretty messed up with both the Hawkeye thing, obviously just everything goes away, and as like a
Yeah.
father and a husband. Not to read too much of this movie, but this movie is very heavy, especially the first like half hour or so. It's super heavy,
Yeah.
and then you move on to when his wife calls. I kind of teared up during that because it's like, oh man, it's just he finally Clint kind of has this closure. And then obviously the Tony Stark part, and the part that got me was the message at the end when he's at the funeral, and I like how he says in case of my untimely death, which really any death is really untimely, the Tony Stark kind of wittiness thing. He looks at his daughter and says, I love you 3000. It's pretty. They really pull the heartstrings on
Yeah.
that in terms of that. So as dad to dad, I mean, obviously you said you almost got there, but what'd you think about just how they kind of really focused on Tony Stark being a dad, and how did it affect you as being a dad watching that on the screen?
I mean, there's that special relationship that I don't think you realize till you do have kids. Holding your kid. When's the last time you're ever going to get to hold them or talk to them, or what would you say to them? And so having that message at the end, yeah, it was tough. And then even when, gosh, I can't remember John Favreau's character, even when they're sitting there, and he's like, you hungry? And she's like, yeah, I want a cheeseburger. And he's like, oh, your dad loved cheeseburgers. And he's like, I'm going to buy you all the cheeseburgers you can eat. Just little things like that she can connect to her dad with. And that makes you think of what you kind of want to leave behind for your kids. And so it's kind of that special relationship that they have. So yeah, it really pulled at the heartstrings, and I was fighting it back pretty hard. Rob's like, don't cry, and I'm like, I'm not.
I just got gas, I swear.
There's something in my eye.
I did think that was we talk about the Avengers this whole 10 years, and they really they've kind of weaved the Avengers as like a family type of thing. I thought that the theme of family really kind of rode definitely through Endgame, but started a little bit more in Infinity War. But you saw as the Avenger movies kind of went along and the universe kind of built, the family ties that they kind of had. So I thought they did a really good job of this being kind of the ending for that family, I guess, to a certain extent, in terms of what kind of bond that they had, the family themes that they had throughout the movie. I thought, it was really well done.
And every team, I mean, Guardians,
yeah,
they were a family, and a continually growing and evolving family for them. And just the way that all the characters kind of mesh, and they all have their own relationships, but in the end they are, several of them are like a huge family because of all they went through. So yeah, that was a big key to the film.
So, like, in terms of, let's talk about Clint and Natasha, because I thought that probably over the last two films, maybe Natasha a little bit more in Civil War than Clint, but I thought that they had more character progression in these 3 hours than they had in 10 years. I thought that they really kind of, and I said that on the other show too, is that they kind of really just kind of grew them really quickly. Of course, Natasha dies at the
getting Soul Stone.
Soul Stone, right? In what was, and they always kind of been each other's tether. I mean, they always talk about, Natasha talks about how Hawkeye or Clint, kind of saved her from her spot. Now she's doing the same thing, and for those characters in particular, and they kind of. Not to go off into another university or another publisher, but Batman always talks about he's not geared to fight aliens, right? I mean, he could if he wanted to, but he's a regular dude with gadgets, and he respects the fact that you have Superman and Wonder Woman, and they can punch these guys really hard, when he just can't do it, right? Mm-hmm. I think that throughout this 10 years, as character-wise, you got to think character-wise with Clint and Natasha, they're seeing all these aliens and gods and stuff, and they got to feel a little bit like they're a little bit out of place. And I think that having those two, especially Natasha in particular, kind of be the hero, and kind of, because if she doesn't do it, if Clint, one of those two, if the human characters do not do this, and I guess you can count Rhodey too, but Rhodey has a suit of armor, right? Black Panther has a suit. So these two are really the only real humans. And I thought they did a really good job of giving them some really great moments to show that, hey, you don't have to be a super soldier. You don't have to be a super smart guy in robot armor. You don't have to be a big green Hulk. But they kind of gave him so much importance in this movie. It was kind of refreshing to see just these non kind of humans. That, sure, they can hold their own, but obviously a little bit out of their element there. What do you think about their whole storyline and how the Russos and the writers? I can't remember the name of the writers of this film, but I didn't mention them in the last one. And the screenplay of this was just incredible. And I can't imagine trying to write this type of movie and giving everybody their say. But what do you think about like the human characters? There's no Quill, a human character kind of messed it up. I guess as human characters you can get, I guess, in this, and obviously Tony and them's human. That's all I'm trying to say. But as far as like superpowers, what do you think about Natasha and Clint's role in this, and how they kind of play? And even Clint, when he's carrying the gauntlet, was a big part of that last battle. How they let the humans, like these really good agents, but not necessarily super agents. How'd you feel about how they kind of made their arc?
I enjoyed it, and I always, ever since the first Avengers movie, the first scene was with Black Widow. I'm like, she's pretty cool. When she's sitting there and she gets a phone call and she's tied to the chair, and she's like, all right, I'll take these guys out and then, be on my way. So, but you kind of see the more human side, I guess, especially between her and Hulk there, as they kind of built upon that in Age of Ultron. And then he, of course, for her, I think, she never really had that family. So, right. This was just kind of her way of giving back to them, because it's the only thing she could do.
Yeah.
Sacrifice herself. And she's like, you have this family that could possibly come back. There's no way I'm letting you, do this.
Throw that away. Right.
Yeah. And so I thought that was touching. And even the way they kind of fought over it. I was like, all right, she electrocuted him or shot him and stunned him and then ran off, and then he shot her in the leg, and I was like, oh man, he's going to get away with this. He's going to end up falling, and then it does kind of swing the other way. She attaches him and ends up dying. So it's kind of a unique thing to see them battle over who's going to do this and get the sacrifice for everybody. And I love Hawkeye, and I know everybody hated him in Avengers, but I'm like, you kind of just have to take the character for what it is. Like in the first Avengers, he was meant to be, he was mind controlled. He was meant to be this really boring character till the end of the movie when he's shooting everything, with his arrows. And then in the other movies, it kind of just, he gets a little more, but he's probably the most interesting in this film right here.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure everybody else would agree with that, because there's a lot of people that don't like him in the Marvel Universe. But I really enjoyed the way they kind of developed that relationship, and they've always had that closeness, like you said, but they just kind of took it up another couple levels this time, as her always being that constant mother or sister figure, to be the only one that could really get through to some of these people. And with her going too, you look at the Hulk, she was really the one that would always bring him back away from that. So if he ever goes past that, who's going to be there for any of those things?
Yeah, I thought they just did a really good job. I like how they brought Ronan into it. As him being like him kind of doing what he hit. Well, a samurai without a master, basically, was what he was doing, and really kind of made him more of a dynamic character. And like when he's destroyed, I guess it's just Yakuza. I guess he was destroyed. His hatred of the fact that his family's dead and all these bad people survived. I thought that was a really good motivation for him to just go out and just slaughter people in terms of that. So I thought it was really good.
I was surprised at how bloody it actually was.
Yeah, when he slices his neck, I thought, oh man, that's like a rated R move right there.
I was like, there's some little kids in here.
It'd be cool. I know he's getting his. There's rumors that he's going to get a Disney Plus series. If there's rumor, even he's kind of said, kind of confirming that he's, kind of involved with something right now. So, with Wanda and Vision, and then Loki, and then Clint, and Hawkeye, I think it's going to be really, really cool how they're going to build this, and especially if those are kind of like branching into the bigger movies, because from what I understand, they're not bringing Daredevil and Punisher and Luke Cage. I think they're staying on Netflix, obviously rated R stuff, and they're kind of want to keep it kind of PG-13. Do you wonder if you see a Daredevil or Luke Cage or something at some point?
I mean, Netflix owns them, but there's no more series.
No more series, right?
In there, which I honestly think Punisher. Like, I like Daredevil. I kind of, the way they ended the last season of Daredevil was like, I didn't really like that. But Punisher has been outstanding both seasons of it, and that's probably been my favorite show on there because it is that gritty character, and that's something it's hard to incorporate into. But if you're gonna have Deadpool, why not Punisher too?
Yeah, I'm not really for sure. Not to get too far off subject, I'm not really sure how they're going to. They said Deadpool's going to be in there, but I think they're also doing like a. I don't know if they're doing another streaming for some of the stuff they got from Fox, some of the radar stuff that they own, because they own Aliens and stuff now too in that deal. So there may be some stuff going in there, but Deadpool's going to kind of live over there. But I think if you look at something like, especially with the shows, and especially with as high budget as this is going to probably be, because you're Disney, you own everything. I think they could really look and see what the CW did with Arrow. Not to say not because they're two archers, but the way the CW kind of built this universe. And I haven't watched Arrow in quite some time. I haven't watched Flash. I know you guys really like the Flash. I think the CW's done a really good job of taking these characters and making them family friendly. I think they could definitely do that with a bigger budget and kind of look at them as like say, oh, hey, well, we could do this, but this is what we're going to have to do it. And so, because Hawkeye very well be a violent character especially if you're going to send him on like special ops and stuff. It's probably going to get a little bit hairy there. So I think it'd be really cool if they did kind of a CW with a much better budget, much better kind of stuff going on with it.
I think they should do like an Ultimates, but with some of these lesser characters.
It'd be cool.
Like a Hawkeye, and just kind of build around some of those that were involved, but you're not going to use in the movies. So you could create almost like this ultimate alternative universe that, because now you have these branching pathways, so you can go a bunch of different ways. And
you've got a lot of different stuff like special ops. If you do like Hawkeye and I don't know who to throw back, Nick Fury, Maria Hill, all that special ops. And you could do like a Marvel Knights with like Moon Knight and Luke Cage and all those, and still be a good kind of gritty feel to it. And I think it's a challenge to take some of those characters and kind of tone them down a little bit and try to fit them in this universe, because there's so many characters that you're never going to see on the big screen. Like, I don't think I'll ever see Moon Knight on the big screen. As cool of a character as Moon Knight is, I just never will see that.
If you had like Daredevil and Hawkeye and Punisher and Moon Knight and Luke Cage, I mean, that just creates this ultimate, group to work with, because they're all these randomly different characters, but you could build something totally cool about them. And actually, like the Luke Cage stuff on Netflix isn't like, Luke Cage isn't this over the top character. He's kind of, a lot of times he walks around the streets just talking to people. He'll handle his business at night, beating people up or taking care of business, but it's not anything close to the Punisher or to that level of violence or anything. His is almost, I wouldn't say a detective show, but it's just kind of a different. And all of them have these different levels in there, which I think a Heroes for Hire show would be awesome.
It'd be really cool. I thought that's what they should have done with Iron Fist and Luke Cage anyway. I thought them getting their separate shows didn't work. I thought they should have been put together.
The Iron Fist show wasn't that good. Luke Cage was like, you could do those 2 seasons and transition to Heroes to Hire, and that would have been great.
Of course, I didn't think we'd ever get a Shang-Chi movie, but apparently that's in the works. So who knows what we'll get with Marvel. Anything, obviously, it'll be good regardless. So move back to Endgame, and we'll talk about some of the at the end. I do want to bring in the Spider-Man trailer and kind of talk about that a little bit because I think it has some really cool possibilities. But we'll talk about that near the end. So what do you think about? I'm not going to go through all the whole movie again, but what did you feel about the Tom Haas storyline? Actually, let me ask you this first. What did you think about the time jump going from, the chopping of Thanos' head, taking that storyline out of the process? It's like, we're not going to fight. We're not going to make it just we're going to fight Thanos, get the stones back. Right. So they jump 5 years later. You really see that this has taken out. We talk about Tony kind of getting away. He's in the country, not really dealing with it, but Cap and Natasha and Roddy is kind of doing his own thing. Rhodey, Captain Marvel's trying to, kind of do everything in the universe because it's happening everywhere. Rocket and Nebula's kind of doing their own thing. Wakanda's trying to figure out what they're going to do, kind of taking care of business there. They're all kind of coming back to Natasha, who's kind of trying to hold this family together, right? She's kind of the nucleus, trying to pull everything back together. What do you think about the Tom Haas storyline? I love how Scott Lang kind of just showed up. I love that whole scene, him going to see his daughter and looking, and all of a sudden he's like, "Hey, I'm Ant-Man. I don't know if you recognize me without the mask." It's just absolutely incredible. I think a lot of people make jokes about really the real hero is the rat that turns on the machine, right? Because I saw that a lot on Twitter. It's like the one who should really lead the Avengers is this rat because he knew exactly what was going on. What do you feel about the Tom Haas and how they kind of set that up, kind of taking the back door of, hey, we're just going to fight Thanos again off the table, and then going into the Tom Haas?
I was very surprised when they cut off Thanos' hand. I was like, oh, man. I was like,
speaking of PG-13,
I'd heard somebody say that Thor cut off Thanos' head, but I was like, maybe that's at the end of the movie. And then it happened. I was like, what is going on?
That's a shocker.
Yeah, it was totally a shocker. And then you're just sitting there like, oh, where do they go from here? Then, and I don't mind the time jump because it just shows how, Thanos wanted everything he thought everything would get better. Mm-hmm. You eliminate half of everybody, they're going to have to figure out how to work together. And they hadn't made it to that point yet. Everybody was still trying to figure out life.
Right.
And it's kind of that unpredictability that, there's still a lot of crap sitting around everywhere. I mean, boats were just sitting in the harbor, not doing
anything. Piled up.
Yeah, they have stuff everywhere. Houses were, sitting unused. So what he thought was going to really, be the savior to this didn't really work out for him like I think he thought it would, because he thought that it would make him better. And it kind of made them better as heroes because they had to come together. But overall, I mean, the world was just in shambles. And I'm sure every other place was too. And the time heist, I knew that Scott Lang would have something to do with it. Because as soon as I saw him go into the quantum verse at the end of Ant-Man and Wasp, I was like, when they disappeared and he was still in there, I was like, that's going to have a big something to play. I was like, maybe everybody who disappeared in that quantum realm, that's what I was thinking. But instead, they go into the quantum realm to go back in time. So it was unique, and I enjoyed seeing how they weaved the aspects from the old movies into this new, kind of sneaking around, making sure they're showing you this part. And like the first Avengers, we never saw those scenes of them capturing Loki and what happens with everything they, so they kind of added to what you didn't get to see, which I kind of thought was cool too.
I thought it was also cool, go back to Thanos for just a second, he destroyed the stones, showing how smart of a villain he is. Like, he's like, hey, I know you guys are probably going to try to come get me. Like, at some point, you're probably going to find me. I'm not going to let these stones just be here for you. Like, I'm just going to destroy them. Like, or whatever they made of atomic subparticles or whatever. Whatever, they're not there no more. And I thought it was really kind of not only showing Thanos as like a ruthless dude that could take out anybody, but how smart he really was. Like how smart of a villain. He's kind of the perfect, until we see Smart Hulk, is the perfect kind of blending of brains and brawn in terms of that. But I thought they did the time heist was really cool. I thought it was a good way to kind of, man, it's just 10 years of these movies. I mean, you think about it, it hasn't even felt like 10 years. It seems like we've got a Marvel movie at least one a year, and I think we have to a certain extent, almost one a year. But I thought it was a really cool way to kind of tie that whole 10-year story in by, like you said, kind of weaving in and out of these key moments, and maybe it's showing them from a different angle, like the part where they're meeting in the, when Tony and Scott's trying to get the thing where they're meeting. And Thor's like, "Hey, we'll take him back to Asgard." He's like, "Oh no, you're not. This is a government thing." Like we didn't see that in the first Avengers, at least not that I can remember.
And it, even when they just showed up, and it shows Hulk beating one of those aliens, and then they kind of turn around and look at him. I was like,
he's like embarrassed. He's just like, "Oh God!"
And then you see Thor in that, and you're like, "Wow, he has changed a lot." I mean, like how like. It almost like 1990s Thor with the highlights in his hair, and this is in Thor Ragnarok. It's like they're two different characters there, and you can kind of see how they've all developed too, and kind of spread out into these deeper characters that have developed. But yeah, I mean, I loved a lot of those little things, and when they're sitting there, trying to get through Asgard, and I was like, how did they get Natalie Portman to come back? But obviously it was footage that they had shot from Thor: The Dark World that they were just using. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense, because you never really see her face except that one close up.
Yeah, when she gets up out of bed, and you see that one close up, and then she walks away. You're like, that's probably somebody else's foot.
Yep, that's somebody else. Somebody else's body they used to walk away.
Yeah.
And so there was all those little things, though, of them trying to sneak in front of Loki's cage where he's hiding there. I really enjoyed how they weaved a lot of that in, and the when they're going to get I can't remember which stone it is that Peter Quill gets in the first Guardians, and as soon as it, they popped up there and they were kicking some of those little animals out of the way, like the song started playing in my head, and I was like, and then he's sitting there singing it, and then all of a sudden it cuts back to them and there's no music. Yeah. He's just sitting there dancing and singing, and you're like, oh man, this is great, because you get to see it from that other point of view that nobody else does.
And then Rhodey's like, oh, so he's an idiot. Yeah.
So it makes basically like all those times you've been around your house cleaning and got your headphones in, now you know what it's like.
That's it. Right. Speaking of Rhodey, he had some really good lines in this movie, man. Like I thought that they did a really good job of making him, again, looking at these, even Scott Lang, even though he kind of has a superpower, these regular dudes, like trying to figure it out, like what, the only thing we know about time travel is Back to the Future, right? And, he kind of referring back to the movies, which I thought was hysterical. And then Rhodey, he has just a lot of really good one-liners. Like, when he's talking about, why can't we just go, like, get baby Thanos? And, like, kind of, and Hulk's like, well, first of all, that's terrible,
And I'm like,
I thought that was really cool. No, it's not. But I thought it was really cool to have those guys there. And, of course, Scott Lang referring to it, using the rules of Back to the Future to Tony, and Tony kind of calls him out for it, really funny. He's like, because that's BS, man. I was really hoping that's not what you was doing.
Back to the Future, Time Cop. I mean, why don't those rules work? I mean, to everybody else it does.
and that's the cool thing is you see just like the Hulk and Nebula and obviously Tony all understand this time travel thing, and everybody else is just kind of referring to what they know about time travel, and they don't know anything. But these in pop culture references, that's what I thought. This did that, and this did that. It's like, no, that's not how it works.
See ourselves. We won't bet on sporting events.
Great. So they get to the time heist, and like I said, a lot of good moments. You get Tony and Cap finally having to kind of do something together because they're still kind of at odds with each other a little bit. And I thought that was a really cool moment. And it kind of became a Cap and Tony story for about 25 minutes or so. And I thought it was really cool. Of course, Cap seeing Peggy, which there's a lot of things in this movie you can nitpick. You know, I told Sean, I was like, man, Peggy Carter really aged really well. Because it's like 1970, and she not even a gray hair or anything.
Yeah.
Which was really funny.
Now, I don't know if you've noticed this or have saw this online, but the subtitles to that scene, have you heard about those?
I have not.
Okay, so the subtitles to that scene when she's sitting there looking at the file, it actually says Braddock has not checked in. And so most people think that they're setting up Captain Britain now.
Captain Britain. Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I'm like, yes. Because New Excalibur, that one run back in, like 2004.
Yeah, way back.
Something like that. I really loved that run. There was about a 30-issue arc or something when they came out, and Captain Britain was a really interesting character. And the whole team I really loved. And I'm like, yes, if we can get, and he kind of takes the place of Captain America. He's not Captain America, but he is almost that same type character. So I
didn't know, man. Look at you dropping knowledge on us. I did not know that. That's pretty cool. That's really intriguing. Technically would have been an X-Men character, right? Right? Was he not in, well, maybe not. I don't know because listen, apparently Fox had first run at pretty much any of the X-Men characters. I don't know if they consider Captain Britain an X-Men character or not. I would consider him an X-Men character.
Let's see, first appearance. Well, I don't know where his first appearance is. Publication history. Marvel UK, Captain Britain Weekly.
I think Alan Moore wrote him over there for a while, I think.
John Romita Sr. First two issues.
So I guess not. I guess he was not an X-Men. He's just he's very closely related to the X-Men because Excalibur was considered kind of like an X-Men book for a while, at least in that kind of family of books.
He did a bunch of Marvel team-ups, some Hulk comics. It's kind of, I don't think he first popped up in Marvel UK. So he's kind of like a character without a home, really.
He's kind of floating around.
Until 2005 when he was introduced in New Excalibur. So he was kind of on his own before that.
Because they had an Excalibur series in the 90s too.
Yeah, but he wasn't in there.
Alan Grant, I think.
Yeah, I don't think he was in there though. But he did Secret Wars and some stuff with the X-Men. In 2008, stuff like that. So that could be interesting. I'm all about new characters and, just seeing some of these characters introduced that you never thought you'd see on screen. And especially like they're digging deep if they're going for Captain Britain or, New Excalibur and stuff like that. I'm like, these off the... not off the wall, but these really deep
off the radar,
off the radar characters, kind of like Guardians was. Guardians was really, a deep pull for them, and you're like,
you ain't kidding.
But look how great that turned out to be.
Yeah.
You can kind of about do whatever you want. So I think, even like I think if you had like a Captain Britain who's kind of straight laced like Captain America is. And then, you've got to find the wise guy in there somewhere too. So that would be a cool way to do it.
Fun fact on this, some of you may know, but also Captain Britain is Betsy Braddock, which is her brother, which is Psylocke in the X-Men. So again, kind of an X-Men tie right there too. Still, so which Betsy Braddock is English. I know she's Asian English, I guess, or Asian British, I guess. I don't know, but she is British. Even though she's kind of written as an Asian character, I think she's British in terms, or was born in Britain. So,
yeah.
So we kind of move on from the time heist. They get all the stones, they're ready to go. Obviously, Tasha's gone. We didn't discuss two really big character kind of changes. One of them for the better, one of them for the worse. You've got Smart Hulk, which I was really excited about because I never thought that they would get to Smart Hulk. But when you think about it, it's probably the next evolution of that character.
Right.
But Smart Hulk kind of came from Peter David, really classic from the 80s, really into the early 90s. He wrote Hulk. So we get this Smart Hulk, which is big, strong Hulk with the brains of Banner, which is awesome because I think that he was just one of the best characters in the movie. And then you've got Thor, who has since kind of failing like everybody else did, but he took it a little bit harder. I like how they moved Asgard to Earth, which was a throwback to the Straczynski run, which me and you both are big fans of, where Asgard was destroyed. They had to find somewhere else to put it, so they actually put it on Earth. And he had to find all the Asgardians after Ragnarok that last time and kind of bring them. Loki was a woman for a while. Everything was kind of different, shook up. I thought that was an Olivia Cope artwork, which is incredible. I still have that action figure Thor of his design because I think it's one of the best designs they've ever done of Thor. So he's got a beer gut. He's somewhere in like Newfoundland or something like that, and so he's kind of their king, kind of the leader, but he's definitely not the Thor that we saw at the end of Infinity War. Kind of that journey and win. He's already lost like half the Asgardians, and then he's trying to figure out kind of what's going on in terms of how he's going to be a leader. But at this point, he's got a beer gut playing Fortnite. He just doesn't really care at this point. He very rarely leaves his house. Valkyrie is kind of, I guess at that point, kind of running the community. I mean, he's not really doing much. Valkyrie's like he only comes down to get beer, and so the gasp that I got Friday night, I had a really good crowd. The gasp that I got when he turned around and had the beer belly was just, oh my God, like what in the world has happened to Thor? What do you think about? And we'll some people have an issue with Thor. I'll kind of ask that question here in a minute. But what do you think about the character evolution of both Hulk and Thor in this?
Hulk, I was surprised about when I first saw it. I'm like, it's just something you don't expect. Because even in Infinity War, he couldn't turn into Hulk.
Right.
So we didn't get to. And so like that whole time I was like, is that Loki pretending to be Hulk?
Mm-hmm.
That was where my whole thought process was the whole time for that. And so when we do see Smart Hulk, at first it's kind of confusing. I mean, you're just like, you go from Ragnarok, and you go from Ragnarok Hulk, who's just like the monster who could be what was kind of like basically Planet Hulk or World War Hulk, just total destruction monster, and now you go to Smart Hulk. It's just kind of shocking there at first, but I did like, there was some really funny parts and well played out. Like his hands are too big. Just little. He's pressing too many switches. What are you doing? Just little things like that I thought was really funny, and they played that part really well. And then I really loved Fat Hulk or Fat Thor. I mean, that shows this guy's a god and he can do. I mean, could do just about anything he wanted to, but he's taking this really hard because he failed, and it's just a normal human characteristic that you don't get from these characters. That's just something you don't see in the Marvel universe at all. Somebody taking it this hard over their failure. They brush it off, they get back on, they succeed in the next movie. But this was really rough on him, and he just didn't care anymore.
Well, I think we see two characters. Talk about Clint, kind of what drove him after his family was dusted, and he's going on this violent spree of killing people. Still not any more or less depressed than what Thor is. He's just doing it a different way. And then you see Thor, who's really lost all of his family. He doesn't have anybody left, and he's kind of reacting the opposite way. He's all like, I don't care anymore. Like I've done all this. I've tried my best, and I failed. So what? Why do I care anymore? So I thought it was kind of a weird dichotomy. And you also got that, we talked about Clint. Clint had him and Thor had a really good exchange after Natasha died, where Clint pretty much told Thor, he's like, well, why don't you take that big hammer of yours and go up there and ask the red floating head guy, why don't you do something about it? And after he kind of talks down to Clint, and really has no right to, because at least Clint was doing something or trying to do something, versus what Thor, murdering people, or maybe actually probably worse than just sitting around playing PlayStation and drinking beer. So I thought, and there was a little bit of controversy over, and I love Smart Hulk. I thought he was really awesome. I thought they did an incredible job with that. And I thought for the first time really in the series, minus Ragnarok, really, not really minus Ragnarok, a little bit here or there, but I thought Mark Ruffalo finally got to act a little bit with Smart Hulk. I thought as even in Infinity War, where Hulk was kind of taken out, you got a little bit more of Ruffalo as Banner. But I thought they did a really good job of letting him be like, okay, Mark Ruffalo's a great actor. Like, we both love Zodiac. Zodiac is an incredible movie. He's incredible in it, and he's just a really good actor. So it was really awesome to see him finally kind of get a little bit more acting chops in there, like the way he, like when he's when he's talking to Scott about sending it back in time, and he's like, "Oh no, it's fine. It's like we'll bring you back or you get stuck. It's one of the talks was like, you're not serious." Or he's like, "Well, it's time. It's time travel. You're either saying or you're joking. It's it's one of the two." And so I thought he did. I thought he really got a chance to kind of be more of an actor in this one. And I know that's people like, "Oh, it's an action, but who cares?" But I thought he did a really good job with that overall.
He was kind of the Drax of this movie. I mean, you don't think of Batista. I watched his first movie with The Man with the Iron Fist, and it was an all right movie. Not great, but when he got in Guardians the first time, you're like, man, he was really good.
Yep.
Now, I'm not saying Ruffalo wasn't good in the others, but in this, like, it's just about all. It's the delivery of all these little jokes and all these lines in there, and it was, he was spot on for everything. So they blended that really well with Hulk and Banner being that perfect mixture on there, and even like sitting there taking the picture, with the kids. You want to take a picture with him? Oh no, okay.
He's kind of, he dabs like the whole dab.
Yeah,
like
when he was dabbing, I was like, he's never had this type of notoriety before, or that I guess he realized this because he had it on, Sakaar. When he was there in Ragnarok.
But that was the Hulk, right? It really wasn't Banner.
Hulk. Yeah. But so he don't remember all this. So he's kind of he's kind of like the ultimate teenager.
Yeah.
He is like, he's got this teenager, but he's also got this really brilliant mind. So it's really an odd mixture.
I thought that they did a really good job of kind of making the Hulk a hero. The Hulk's one was always like, is the Hulk a hero or a monster? Does he really understand what he's doing? Is he like Captain America, or is he like, he can turn into a villain or a monster and not really know what he's doing? And uncontrollable rage. I thought, with him being the one to do the snap, I thought that was really a cool way to be like, yes, the Hulk's a hero. Like, he, even when he's a monster, he's still a hero, but it is kind of, walking on eggshells. Which Hulk are you really going to get? And with Smart Hulk, I thought it was really good how they kind of was like, yes, Hulk's a hero. Like Banner, even if Banner's in control, not in control, the Hulk's always been a hero, but he really gets his moment here to. And I think everybody kind of gets their moment to be a hero here. But I thought it was really cool to give Hulk that kind of moment. So Thor, there's been a little bit of controversy with Thor. A lot of people thought that it was kind of, I guess, for lack of a better term, like fat shaming, I guess, that, if you're depressed and you get overweight and stuff like that. And look, depression's a terrible thing. And I thought that they handled it as well as they could, because they gave Thor, one of the things I saw on Twitter, somebody showed up, was when he goes back to see it goes back to Asgard to get the whichever stone it is. I can't remember what stone it is. The ether, right? The ether stone. He's talking to his mom, and right before he leaves, he puts his hand out and kind of call him on air to come back to his hand, and he's kind of second guessing whether or not he's worthy enough. Like, through this whole thing, he's kind of quit, and he's not the Thor that he used to be, and he kind of had his moment and took it away right after. It seems like he recovered from the whole Asgard thing and Thanos at the first Infinity War. Now he's here. He failed, and Mjolnir kind of still comes to him. Somebody put on Twitter, it was like, look, everybody could talk about Hulk's or Thor's body, but it also tells you, look, even if you're at the lowest of lows, you're still worth something. Like you're still worthy to live, and you're still worthy to go out and try to find your joy and try to, fight this depression. And I thought it was, I didn't really look at it that way. But when I looked at it, I was like, man, because he had a big smile, like he goes from, oh man, I don't know. And he has this big kind of cheesy grin because he knows he's kind of gives him the push for him to become Thor later on in that last battle. I thought that was really neat.
And if you notice, I was reading something about it, and they made this point that when he has solved everything, like his problems are solved, he's in a much better mood.
Mm-hmm.
He knows he is worth something. He didn't fix his body because that wasn't the problem, and that's not the problem. It was his self-confidence, and like he was depressed because he failed. And he had never done that before, and he didn't know how to handle it.
Yep.
And to deal with it because he let so many people down. And so now when everything is fixed, he's still Fat Thor, and it doesn't bother him, because he's out there swinging his hammer and cutting people down. But that wasn't the problem with him. It was the depression.
And he even said, he was like, now I've been trying to be who I'm supposed to be for so many years. Now I get to be now I get to be who I am. Right. And I thought it was really cool. I know a lot of people had trouble with it, but look, I'm all for it. I'm all for looking in the movies. I can see where somebody would get that, but his overall story arc, once you get to the end, I don't think that's there anymore. I don't think you have that argument anymore.
That's just for comedic value, because every movie you've ever seen Chris Hemsworth in, he's taking his shirt off and he's just completely ripped. He's like, he is the epitome of Thor in real life. If you see him, he looks like Thor, and that's how he's been portrayed. And then you see him in this totally different light, and you're like, oh, what is going on? I thought one of the greatest line when he walks in and he looks like the Big Lebowski. And when they said that, I just cracked up.
Tony's like, what side, Lebowski?
Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh! I was like, he does look like the dude. I was like,
part where he stepped back and they're going over the stones or whatever.
Because he's asleep.
Like, is he asleep? I think he's dead. It's just good stuff.
Yeah.
One of the things that funny. I don't know. Have you listened? I don't know if you listened to the first episode we did or not. But Shauna, right when he turned around, his big belly was there. She looked at me and was like, "Look, honey, you got a body like Thor now." And so I was like, "Oh, she's not lying." And then somebody had posted a tweet I thought was really funny about. Somebody had posted something like, to tell the truth, the only reason I'm going to see Endgame is because of this, and it shows him without a shirt on. He's got abs. And the next one was like, all right, who's going to tell him? I thought that was really funny. And literally Twitter, there's a bunch of really good ones that people was posted, but it was really cool. So we move on. Obviously, everything's, I think it's fine. The snap is done. And then all of a sudden, we find out Thanos, the past Thanos, the 2014 Thanos, he knows earlier in he knows what's going on. Nebula had already switched out. So then the big battle comes. And right when you think, oh, man, you're going to get a little bit of a breathing room. The Avengers headquarters is blown to smithereens. Like, it is just blown up. Big explosion, nothing left. Heroes scattered all over the place in terms of that. And we're ready for this big battle. This is and it happens like this movie goes from beginning quickly, kind of slowing down in the middle, kind of getting the plot set up, and then the last hour comes on real quick. Like, it is boom, we're ready to go. It's fisticuffs. What do you think about how they kind of opened that up? Like, it was in terms of blowing up the mansion and everything. How that last hour or so, the way that they set it up, how do you feel like they set that up?
I really like the stuff with Nebula.
That was real good.
I think her character's kind of not been underestimated, really, but I really liked how they played her in Guardians 2 because she still didn't want to trust anybody then.
Yeah.
And then, like, at the end of this movie, she's like, she's basically like, they're my family.
Yeah.
They're the only family she's ever really truly had.
Like the part where Rocket sits next to her and
Yeah.
holds her hand, that was very a human moment for Nebula. This robot, basically a robot, basically what she is. I mean, Thanos had pulled parts out, put parts in. And her story arc, that at this point she's changed so much that she's okay with holding another person's hand, which is huge for her,
Yeah. And if you remember the first of Guardians 2, I mean, her and Rocket were just at each other.
all the time, right?
Yeah. When the ship crashed, I mean, and they're left there trying to fix it. I mean, they're literally at each other's throats. And you just see this whole character development in her. And I really like that character. I don't know what it is, but I just really like the way that they play her and the way they used her. And I knew I didn't know what was going to happen, but when she started shorting out and showing stuff, and I was like, oh no, I was like, this isn't good at all.
Right.
I started playing that in my mind, and then Thanos is like, oh, take her to the ship, and then he's seeing everything, and I was like, oh, this is going to end badly.
And I thought the explanation of them sharing the same network, I thought that was genius.
Yeah, it was. They were just hooked up to the same Wi-Fi, I guess.
Basically, yeah.
I don't know what kind of Wi-Fi you got out there in space, but it's pretty good. You're shooting across parts of the galaxy.
But Google ain't got nothing on that, man.
And I like how it kind of showed how the old Nebula, which she kind of expanded on, talking more and more through the last 3 movies she was in, but how far she really wanted to go to please Thanos. Because to her, that's her father. That's all she wanted to do was please him.
Yeah.
And to see where she's at now is that she almost feels loved by even Gamora, because she was like, oh, we became sisters.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, that's just this huge change for her. And so I like even seeing those two there together and interact, the difference in the character, because you really don't think about it. It's just something that, you've seen this gradual change. You're like, okay, that's great. But when you see how she was in the first Avengers movie to how she is now, you're like,
right.
Wow. I mean, that's character development really over, they've stretched that out. And so I liked how they used her and to bring the Dark Aster over into. I was like, I knew something was going to happen, and I was like, what is she trying to do? And then I was like, I knew she was trying to maybe just bring Thanos over, but when I saw the ship coming, I was like, oh man, that's trouble. But I really enjoyed that. And seeing him blow everything up. And when I saw Ant-Man going down there, I was like, oh, he's going to turn into Giant Man again. Yeah. I was like, I can't wait for this.
Took him a little bit. It took him a while there.
I was like, we only got to see him in Civil War. Oh, wait. Yeah. Ant-Man and Wasp, maybe I can't remember if we got to see him in that or not. But I was like, we're going to get to see Giant Man again. And he was just throwing down on everything. So, awesome. Yeah, it was cool.
One of the things I know a lot of people had a problem with was the Pym particles. They're like, how to get all those ships with. Let me just tell you guys something. Those Pym particles was probably the most basic science in terms of the technology that Thanos had. So I just took it as Thanos probably took that little vial. Was like, I just go reproduce this. It looks like it's pretty simple science. Just go reproduce it, type of thing.
And I know I've been this way at times, wanting to pick stuff apart, but I think it started. With The Last Jedi, when the last Star Wars movie came out and everybody's like, oh, I hate this. This is awful. And I was like, oh, crap. I was like, I was really looking forward to this. And I didn't watch it for I didn't watch it in the theater. I waited till it was on Netflix and I watched it and I was like, I really like this movie.
I was the same way after I saw it in theaters and everybody was like, this movie's terrible. I was like, what's so terrible about this movie?
Everybody's wanting to pick everything apart. And I'm like, let's just sit back and enjoy.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, there's so many problems with the timeline now. I was reading an article on that, or I saw headlines before I even went and watched Infinity War, and they're like, oh, well, or Endgame, and they were like, oh, well, the timeline's messed up, and what can they do to fix it? And I'm like, people are just complaining about it. I'm like, let's just sit back and enjoy it. I don't
Right.
care. I'm not smart enough to dig deep enough into the timeline to see how it's messed up. I mean, I could probably sit down and think about some of it, but I'm like, I just want to sit back and enjoy. This has been 11 years in the making. I've watched. I don't what and the I Love You 3000. That actually comes from how many minutes there are total in all of this.
I saw that somebody posted on Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah. So the 3,000 minutes minus Captain Marvel that I haven't seen yet, which I want to now after seeing her in Infinity
Really
War, because she was awesome.
Yeah.
But I'm like, the 3,000 hours I put into this, I just want to sit in and enjoy seeing this.
Yeah, I thought it was. And listen, I thought they did a really good job of explaining timelines and how to fix them and stuff like that. I think it was very hard to follow in terms of what they was trying to do. So we get to the battle, and we're just going to talk about parts here because I don't think that we just got to talk about the parts we like the most. So on the other podcast, I said the part that made me jump out of my seat was when Cap got the hammer. I thought
him and Thor trading off the hammer and
Stormbreaker.
I was like, this is brilliant. I was like, this is awesome. This is something like. Now the only thing might would have been better is if you'd had Beta Ray Bill in there and him and Thor trading back and forth, but having him and Captain America just trading those back, like one of them's throwing it and then the other catches it and throws it back the other way.
Yeah,
I was just like, oh, this is incredible.
I just thought because it was something back in Age of Ultron. They're all sitting around having a good time, and he goes to lift it. In the comics, he does. Like he's one of the few people that actually lifts Monair because he is worthy. And there's many times where Thor says that Captain America is the only mortal that he would ever follow in the battle because he has such respect for Captain America. And so when Thor's about to get stabbed, cut in half by Stormbreaker by Thanos, and that hammer starts moving, I thought, oh man, this is it. Like if they're going to do it, they're going to do it right here. And as soon as he gets it, he kind of recoils it when he catches it. I really did jump out of my seat. Like I had hands in the air. I was like, yeah, I totally geeked out.
I was like, man, this is awesome. And then when Thor's like, I knew it.
Yeah.
You're like, yes.
And then Cap just goes and starts, and the one thing I think people, I mean, in comics, we kind of see this in print, how they kind of have unique ways of how they use their weapons and how they do battles. But to see that on the screen and just to see the uniqueness of how he's using on there with the shield, and the shield's not taking, it's not, out of thing. He's got a powerful weapon, but he's still using what he knows to kind of use it in combination. I thought that was just an incredible scene all the way around. And then, of course, you've got – I told Shauna this when I watched it the second time with Joe. I've seen this movie 3 times, and so I got a chance to kind of set back. That's I know, right? So me and Andrew and Shauna, and then Andrew's wife Jessie went, and then Joe wanted to go see it, so we went a matinee the next day, and then we took our nephew and his girlfriend to go. So I wasn't just going to see it, but I was. And me and Jared have, he knows this. I don't like watching movies multiple times. Like it's just, I have to really like the movie to be excited to go see it again, or it has to be something like Ghostbusters or something really a classic that I don't mind to watch again. But I definitely don't go see things multiple times in the theater. Like I see it once, wait for it on Blu-ray, Netflix, whatever. But I was excited every time. That's how good this movie was to me. Like I was like, oh man, I can't wait to go see it again. Oh man, I can't wait to go see it again. But of course, the part where Thanos looks like he's going to win. He's bringing his army in. They're coming through all those portals. And I didn't notice it the first time, but definitely the second time. You got that ravine between, and then you just see Cap. And the first time, I guess I missed it because I was looking at all the army and stuff coming through. But the second time, I was like, holy crap. Like, it's just Cap. He's all by himself in front of this big army. And you have this guy that, going back to, him, and he says this in the comics, that he's always faced the biggest evil, which was Hitler, which is true, in terms of real life. But now he's here again in this great war, and a fictional war, but great war, and he's the last line of defense. And this is what this is where Cap's always kind of had his moment. Like Cap has always kind of had moments. We kind of knew who Cap's character was, but just to see that on the screen, him getting up with a half, busted up shield, standing in front of this army, he's thinking, man, and he pulls the belt. It was which is great because he's at that he's got a cut across his arm. He pulls it really tight, and he grits his teeth and he's ready to go. And then all of a sudden you see the circles, strangest circles. And you see Black Panther come out, and Sam's like on your left, and it's just an incredible scene to see all those heroes kind of flood out. What was and then of course the other part I geeked out about when he was like Avengers Assemble. I mean, it's like, oh man, I was just ready to go. What do you think about when all those heroes were collected? And it gives me goosebumps just thinking about it because you're such a great scene.
When you see the circles start to happen, I was like, oh man, I was like, it's getting good. And then you start seeing slowly everybody comes through one by one, and you're like, it's kind of like when I watched Lord of the Rings: Return of the King in the movie theaters, and you see right before the battle of I think it's Battle of Minas Tirith, right at the end, you're like, you just see all this two massive armies, and you're like, this is something kind of special. You don't see this all the time. And so that's kind of like it was when you see all all these heroes will never be, well, for the next 20 years, you'll probably not see all these heroes in the same place at the same time on the same screen fighting this big, massive battle. I was like, it is something special to see, because Captain America, I don't know if you'll ever, for a while, you won't see him and Iron Man there together for a long time again, and just seeing it, you do kind of get goosebumps, because then you start, one by one, they slowly start coming over, and then when Avengers assemble and they start rushing toward each other, it was
awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you just got this big rush of energy, like you're sitting there watching, and you see them start clashing, and all the little things like Drax jumping on the one big monster's back and
just like stabbing him.
I just started laughing out loud. I was like, because that's the way he was in Guardians 2 when they were fighting that big, huge thing at the first of the movie when he was inside trying to get out of it. Just little things like that. I thought, all right, this is pretty awesome. And then, even with passing the gauntlet to all those different people, I thought that was pretty cool too, to see how, each one's playing their role, trying to, help get it to the end. And I thought it was pretty cool having Captain Marvel, she was carrying it, but I was like, she doesn't really need any help. She could just blast through anybody, but just giving each of them their screen time and playing them off of each other, because I think at one time they were using Cap's shield, like Cap threw his shield and then he hit it with a hammer, and then Thor got the hammer, and then they were just passing stuff back and forth, and it was just it was pretty crazy. The only thing you missed is having Colossus there to throw
Wolverine with speedball special.
Speedball special.
Yep. And we will probably get that at some point, hopefully.
Hopefully.
And so, but there's, a lot of moments like you got Wanda kicking the crap out of Thanos, which I thought was really cool.
That was awesome, because Robin was like, "Who is that?" And I was like, "That's Scarlet Witch," and she was like, basically rolled her shoulders, and I'm like, "No, I don't think Avengers or any of them have really touched on how powerful she truly is."
Well, I was telling Shauna that too.
Underestimated.
Yeah, in the comics, like, she can alter reality. Like, she's so powerful. Like, she made up her own kids, and everybody believed they were real. That's how powerful she is. And to see her be like, and the line Thanos put out is like, "Well, I don't even know who you are," and it's almost like, well, you're going to find out real quick who she is, and just her, and to the point where you see this big, powerful character who has taken down Cap and Iron Man and Thor. Then you have Wanda, who's kind of been a side character at best. Like, that's even being a little bit generous. Like, she hasn't really had a lot of big roles, minus, and they kind of hint at how powerful she is. Somebody brought up a point, like, when she takes when she destroys the stone, like, it's like, oh crap. Like, because you saw Thanos destroying the stone, burn his arm up and half his face. And so they kind of hint at, she has this subtle ability. It just takes something to kind of go out. And you see that in the comics too, when Wanda gets emotional. Like, that's when her powers really kind of start to – they don't kind of explain her powers. Their hex powers are more like manipulating reality powers and stuff like that. It's hard to get into that in this type of setting.
But
But
you can visually see it here.
yeah,
That's
when she
one of the
starts
big
angry, like she's showing her anger, and you just see that power kind of well up. It's the same in the comics. Like when she gets emotional, you're like, oh crap! Like I could wake up in another world because she's emotional and she's completely, altered reality.
She was just ripping him apart.
Oh, it was incredible.
Chunks were flying off his armor, and I was like, I was getting excited about that because.
And even to the point where you see this guy that's taking out everybody go to his fail safe, like he's hitting the big red button, to try to save himself. So really cool moment there. You talked about the moment where Captain Marvel, which I thought the moment where Spidey's kind of holding on to the gauntlet and she flies over and he's like, hi, my name. And the funny thing, Peter's trying to introduce himself to everybody. He doesn't get the chance, Yeah, and so he's like, oh, hi, my name's Peter Parker. She's like, hi, Peter Parker. You got something for me? I just thought it was a really cool interaction between the two. I thought that was really cool. Well, then, of course, all the women behind her being like, we'll have her back. I thought that was really cool. And I really kind of want to see an all-female Avengers movie, which would be really cool. But there's so much, like, cool stuff in that battle. What other things did you see that maybe
I loved Ant-Man punching the big flying thing.
Oh, that was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh, yeah. And gosh, I can't even remember.
I did like the Spidey Ant-Man combo when he pulls
Yep.
that off of Tony and then he slams and he like steps on that big dude. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yep, that was cool. I really liked her squaring off one-on-one with Thanos.
I thought that was cool. I thought her whole scene coming in, like blowing up the big ship and then going one. I thought that was cool.
I was like, as soon as I saw her, I saw everybody looking up like, what is that? I was like, or what are they shooting at? I was like, she's gonna tear stuff up. And she did. She tore the ship up, and then when she came after Thanos, and basically she was ripping his hand apart.
Yeah, when he goes to headbutt her, it's like, boom.
she was gonna break his thumb off so he couldn't snap his fingers, and that's what I was hoping for. I was like, just rip it off.
Yeah,
to see something cool like that on screen, and then I was a little disappointed that she didn't get to do that because
I thought they did a really good job of taking her off the board. Like, we talk about Civil War and we both read it when it was coming out. They took Hulk and Thor off the board. Like they just like, hey, we got to get the most powerful people on the board. I thought they made right because whoever side they're on, I mean, they're all automatically going to win, right? And so I thought it was really smart. I told Sean, I was like, because there was a lot of questions like, why wasn't she in the movie more stuff? But I thought they did a really good job right from the beginning, being like, hey, this is kind of like she's the whole galaxy's cop here. Like she's taking care of everybody, not just Earth. So I thought they gave her a really good premise to be off Earth. And then when she shows up, I thought we talked about the Ultimates a little bit, before. That part when she's flying through the ship. Oh, sorry about that. It reminded me of when Thor in the Ultimates was using his hammer flying through the ships. I thought, oh man, So even that was a throwback with maybe not even meaning to be a throwback. So
there were so many cool parts in the fight, though. I mean, just every little thing that you see is like, you can't catch them all almost, or you're trying to, but you're just sitting there, watching. Black Panther. I can't remember anything that really. There's a couple scenes he was in, but
Well, he takes remember when he grabs the gauntlet from Clint because he has the absorption.
Oh yeah, I'll take it from here. Yeah, and then I was like, well, that didn't last long because he had made a couple people and then he gets blasted. And I was like, well, crap.
I mean, it's a good run, man. I thought he had a pretty good run. But once the Connecticut, I mean, then I guess it was Ebony Maw that took him, which I think Ebony Maw is a pretty
when Spider-Man, he was like killing mode or something like whatever it was, and the legs came out of his back.
That was awesome.
I was like, oh my! I wanted to geek out to Robin, but I was like, shoot, I have no idea what I'm talking about.
And the part, where Steve's like, "Hey, Queens," and he throws the hammer, and he takes it, and webs it up. I thought that was really cool. Get him out of the situation. But there's just so, I mean, and it's going to take sitting down and really kind of watching this over and over to catch everything. Because I'm sure there's something in the background we see. It was like, and Valkyrie, like, just dragging her sword across the side of the big centipede things. And thought it was really cool. And of course,
or Tony Stark using Thor's power.
That was awesome. Yeah.
I was like, whoa. So
him doing his best Hulk Hogan impression, he goes, "Oh, yeah, I was just shooting a thing." That's the first thing I thought about. I was like, "Man, he's really kind of flexing for us." And so, and then obviously all this culminates, in terms of Tony dying. He looks at Doctor Strange and asks him, "Hey, just the one," and he kind of throws the one up, and he knows what he has to do. And I thought it was really cool that the armor kind of took over. Like it was just like, it just kind of took the thing. And I think it's one of the, and you knew like when Thanos goes to stab, nothing's going to happen. And then he's like,
I thought maybe he just took one of them, but he took all. Like at first,
he took all.
I was like, he pulled the one off the back or whatever, and I was like, so he's going to do something with it. But then he raised his hand. I was like, oh, crap, he took all of them. Yeah, you knew it.
I thought it wrapped up real good. I mean, I think obviously, Tony dying is a big part of that last part, but we also see Sam becomes Captain America. I
like Hawk, or I like Sam, but I'm like, I want to see him as Captain America. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how he does as Captain America, but I'd much rather, of course, Bucky's going to be have a different role. Even though I'm like, I like Bucky as Captain America after, Winter Soldier or whatever, but I don't know. It's just hard to replace.
I think that, I think him and they're going to do Falcon and Bucky, I think was one of the Disney Plus shows they're going to do. So I think that's going to be really cool. But I thought, Sam was Cap in the comics for a while.
Yeah.
I think he fits the role really well. And I think somebody's talking about me. He kind of had a problem with it. And I was like, he said, it kind of should have been Bucky. And I said, but that whole sequence where, Steve's going to go back in time. Of course, Steve ends up with Peggy and they have a long life. And old Steve kind of gives a shield to Sam. The whole sequence where Bucky's the only one to tell him goodbye. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of people thought that, he passed up Bucky. Why did he pass it? Did you really think he didn't talk to Bucky about this? Because even after the thing where, Sam kind of looks at Bucky and Bucky kind of shakes his head, Bucky didn't want to be Captain America. Like he knew that, and to be quite honest, Bucky's got a lot of blood on his hands. I think it would be a really issue for him to be Captain America. But I think I actually liked it. I thought they was going to give it to Bucky, and when they passed him over for Sam, I thought, oh yes, I can dig that. Like, I can go with that. So because I do like Anthony Mackie's character, I think he's done a really good job with it. So I'm glad we're going to get more of him.
Yeah, to be, he is kind of this side, another side character in the Marvel universe. I mean, you have had Captain America and Falcon, some comic crossover and stuff, but still, he is not a major player.
Right.
And I think, getting Captain America out and Iron Man for a while. Like I texted you, and I almost hated after I texted. I was like, "Crap! I should have saved it for the podcast." Talking about this is your chance to bring in Mr. Fantastic as the the brains behind all these things now, because that's kind of what Tony was, and he can kind of just slide right in and take Tony's place. And
so let's kind of move into that. Let's kind of transition into that in terms of that, because I want to go over the Spider-Man trailer right quick, if you don't mind. I know you haven't seen it, but there's something in there that I think is going to intrigue you in terms of that. And we won't be too much longer. But in the trailer, the Mysterio you see in the trailer is going to be it's said by Nick Fury that he's from another universe, and that when Thanos snapped his fingers, it creates a rip in that universe. And so there's been some speculation about how they're going to bring in, and I said on the other podcast, I felt like this was perfect for the Fantastic Four to become the Avengers, the middle of this universe. Now there's no event. Well, there's always going to be Avengers. The Fantastic Four being like the center of the Marvel universe, which they should be, because they're the first characters Marvel, especially in the '60s when they kind of broke out. But my theory, and people post on Twitter, but for the record, I did not take it from Twitter. I have records, text from this. But I thought, man, what a cool way it would be to bring in where maybe on the main MCU Earth you have Avengers, Peter Parker, Spider-Man, and you have Guardians on
Yeah.
this Earth. But in the other Earth, there are no Avengers, there are no Guardians. Instead, you get Miles, you get Fantastic Four, and you get the X-Men as their core group.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to bring that up because you mentioned it earlier about alternate universes. I want to bring that up because I think that would be a tremendous way to bring that in.
That's what I was thinking, and you can cross over between those universes too. And still you can use those to build all these different characters. But I mean, having multiple universes can get so tricky, or not tricky, but confusing to the people watching. Because if you're just a casual watcher, you're gonna be like, "Oh, well, you have X-Men. Why aren't the Avengers helping?" To casual fans, to all of us will be like, "Well, duh, because they're in a totally
they're in another universe."
Yeah. So, but I like the idea of multiple universes just because you can branch off with so many things. And
I think it opens up Secret Wars, right? Like, is this going to culminate in either? I think Galactus is obviously out there. Maybe they come together to fight Galactus, but maybe it starts off like, hey, and I kind of go back to Jonathan Hickman's run in 2013-14, where you had these incursions where you had these two Earths kind of come together and they're going to explode. Like the Earth that's coming into the other Earth is going to survive, and the Avengers have to eventually they figure out they have to destroy the other Earth before the incursion can occur. So there's a lot of you want to destroy a whole planet. Like, is it hero like? Is it not hero like? Is it kind of the last gasp? But then you create a problem where you're like, hey, I want the ultimate guys. We'll call it the ultimate MCU for clarification. Then you've got the main MCU. That creates a problem, right? So now they have a reason to fight, and maybe you have Galactus there. It's like, I won't take both of your planets because I'm Galactus and I like to eat planets. So there's a lot of stuff there to kind of unpack, and we don't have a ton of time to unpack it, but I think it's incredible what they've kind of opened up. If the truth is there is a rift between this, I mean, I think it opens up a lot of possibilities.
And then you've got, they had all the X-Men you had like the Days of Future Past, the Days of Future Present. So you got a million different things to tie into, and like X-Men probably have more tie-in stories with everybody involved than any other group. I mean, just because you can throw off to all these other major things happening that they've brought the Avengers in for, or Spider-Man, or there's just so much crossover with them. So it opens up a world of possibilities, and I'm excited for Dark Phoenix too, because I didn't mind the last. Well, I didn't mind the other X-Men movies. You got Days of Future Past, and then you also had there was one after that, whatever it was. But like, I didn't really mind it. They weren't that bad like everybody. A lot of people hated on them. Some people loved them, but I love First Class. That was probably my favorite one, but the others weren't bad. They were fun to watch, and I just like the X-Men characters. So
it'd be interesting where they kind of take. I think the X-Men is their next big franchise. I think as far as name recognition, definitely, you've got, and even to a certain extent, I mean, the X-Men was probably more recognizable than the Avengers was for a long time. So it'll be interesting to see how they kind of connect everything. It's gonna be fun. We know that. So
I think Dark Phoenix will just kind of end the Fox universe, and they're going to
reboot it. Yeah. I think they have to. I think that that. I mean, I like some of the X-Men movies. I like First Class a lot. I thought, especially because it was a time kind of period piece that was really cool. But I didn't watch the other two. Just didn't interest me very much. But I think just the fact that we're talking about that Avengers and the X-Men can share a screen, which we never thought that would happen, is pretty incredible. And we got years and years and years and years and years and years of stories, and that's on top of having already years and years and years of story to kind of pull from. So it's going to be interesting. So. Well, I think that wraps it up. Jared, thank you for staying up a little bit late to do the podcast here. I was hoping you'd see it sooner rather than later because I really want to talk to you about it. I couldn't talk to you about it because I didn't want to spoil it. And so we appreciate everyone that listened to the first one. I think people are still talking about this movie. So if you want some more in-game talk, we definitely gave it to you with a little bit of everything else Marvel Universe related. But Jared, I appreciate it. So for Jared Collins, I'm Aaron Collier, and we'll end this episode of the first half episode of a Spoilercast or any type of Monster Geek podcast. So for Spoilercast 2.5, we're out.